The hour of convening having arrived, all members will please report to their assigned seats and take their seat. All members will report to the House of Representatives. The clerk will ring the bell. All right, we're about to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Well, good morning. What a beautiful day out there today, huh? A little wind chill factor, felt like Green Bay, but the sun is shining. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 34th House District, Representative Burt Reeves. Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I get to introduce a really good friend of mine here this morning, Dr. Ike Reichert, and I tell you, I love him. I worked for him back in the summer of 1999. I was a youth ministry intern at his church, North Star in Kennesaw at the time. And, Mr. Speaker, I've had to wait 7 years. I've wanted to bring him down since I've been a representative, but I had to wait for the pandemic to bring him down. And the reason why, Ike, is because normally in a non-pandemic time, after you give your sermon, everybody lines up and talks to you. And I can't risk Trey Kelly being able to tell lies about me to you. So I had to bring you down here during the pandemic year. But Dr. Reichert has lived an amazing life. He actually started out, he was a DJ in Atlanta. He was a DJ for Z93 a long time back in the day. But God called him into the ministry, and he's grown churches all over the metro Atlanta area, New Hope down in Fayetteville, North Star in Kennesaw, and now Piedmont Church in Marietta. He's been the president of the Georgia Baptist Convention. He has authored numerous books and speaks all over the country. But the thing I want to say the most about him is what the heart that he has for our community. He, in addition to being a full-time pastor, he has been the CEO of a major nonprofit, Must Ministries, which serves a lot of Northwest Georgia and feeding the hungry and providing shelter for the homeless. And that has really become his passion, and his leadership in that organization has been phenomenal. And he was telling me earlier that in a normal year, Must Ministries feeds between 32 and 34,000 different individuals throughout a year, and in 2020 they fed 178,000 folks during our pandemic year. And so his leadership with Must Ministries is serving the people of Northwest Georgia in a tremendous way, and it is a real honor to welcome my friend, Dr. Ike Reichert. Thank you, Ike.
I appreciate that kind introduction, and Speaker Rawson, thank you for allowing me this privilege, and it's an honor to get to be with you today. And let me tell you why it's such an honor for me. I grew up in downtown Atlanta on Marietta Street. And so we used to ride our bicycles down to the state capitol, and we would walk around and just think about the opportunity to be able to walk in this building and to think that you have the privilege of being able to serve the state of Georgia in the role that you've been elected to, and to be able to come into a place that's as historic as the place that we're in today. And so it is quite an honor to be with you. And I know that everyone in this room is a leader. That's why you've been elected into the position that you're in. And I want to talk to you for just a couple of moments about leadership. And I want to tell you about the greatest leadership lesson that I ever learned in my entire life. And ironically, it took place right there on Marietta Street because I attended Goldsmith Elementary School. And in the 6th grade, I was selected. I was so outstanding that I was selected to be a school patrol person. Have any of you in this room ever been a school patrol person? Take a good look around. If anything happens, you find one of us. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure that you're escorted we know what we're doing. We are highly, highly trained. And I think back to the fact that on Marietta Street at the corner of Rice Street near Grove Park, I'm sitting there as a 6th grader helping 1st and 2nd graders get through intersections with all the traffic that existed on Marietta Street. But when I was a school patrol boy, I learned our motto. And our motto was the greatest lesson, honestly, that I've ever learned in leadership in my entire life. A few years ago, I was with a group, and I said, how many are school patrol? And a lot of them raised their hand like today. And then I just kind of rhetorically said, do any of you remember what our motto was? And someone yelled out, stop, drop, and roll. Dude, that's if you're on fire. You cannot move small children through an intersection with any efficiencies by yelling stop, drop, and roll. No, that's not the deal. But it was the motto that was the single greatest leadership lesson that I've ever learned. Because here's what the motto said. And as I start it, you'll be able to remember it. It's stop, look, and listen. Stop, look, and listen. Greatest leadership lesson that I've ever learned. If you want to have some fun with it, take it home tonight. And when your spouse or your significant other starts talking to you, stop what you're doing, look at them, and then listen and watch them freak out. Because the first thing they're going to do when you do that is they're going to go, why are you looking at me? And you're going to say, well, because you're talking. And then you're going to hear them say, well, you normally don't look at me when I'm talking. And you're just going to reply to them, well, I heard a little, opportunity this morning about how to be more engaged. Because to me, that's what you do as representatives of this great state. You have the job of stopping and looking and listening to the people who helped to elect you. For you to come here and to stop what you're doing, to look and to listen to what takes place inside of this chamber, this very sacred spot that you're able to come to, because you help to be able to direct what happens in the lives of ordinary citizens every day. And it's an awesome responsibility, and it's one I know that you do not take lightly. I want to show you out of Scripture very quickly how this very same principle came into being. It's in the book of Nehemiah, which I think is the greatest leadership book in the Bible. It's in the Older Testament. And there was a day that a group of people came to Nehemiah, and Nehemiah had never been to the city of Jerusalem. And one of those men was named Hananiah. And Nehemiah said to Hananiah, how are things in Jerusalem? And when he asked that question, Hananiah looked at him and he said, there's only a remnant of the province who've survived in captivity. He said they're in distress, they're in disgrace, and the walls of Jerusalem are broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. And when Nehemiah heard these words, I want you to listen to what he did. He said, I sat down. One of the best things that we can do as leaders is learn to sit down and not always talk. There's a lot of things that are going on in our country today. There's a lot more listening taking place, and that listening is something that's definitely been needed. And he said, I sat down, and I fasted, and I prayed, and I wept before the God of heaven. He said, I looked at the situation, and I wanted it to be better. To me, this is a bias for action for people who are people of faith. You weep, you mourn, you fast, and you pray. And you ask for God to give you wisdom in this awesome, awesome responsibility that you have. May we pray together? Almighty God, we give you thanks as we stand in this assembly today. We thank you, God, for the amazing men and women who serve in our armed forces all around the world and at the very doors of this assembly. God, we pray that you would grant protection. We pray, Lord, that you would help our nation to sit and to listen to one another more carefully. That there would be more conversations that are courageous about how we too can rebuild our walls in our Jerusalem. So God, continue to grant that discernment to the people here today. Grant them knowledge about how to lead our great state of Georgia. And Father, I would ask you today that you would bless America. And we pray these things together, and all of God's children said, amen. Would you pledge allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159th moves following be established as the order of business and in the first part of the period unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. What purpose does Chairman Hogan rise?
I have a real important message this morning. It's very, very hard to be both socially distant and Southern.
I concur. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 130 by Representative Gulliver, the 19th, Saints of the 180th, Williams the 145th, Gravely the 67th, and Mount Tahana the 17th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 60, Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions applicable to counties and municipal corporations.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 131 by Representative Boehner, the 56th, Bazemore the 63rd, Thomas the 39th, Limon the 99th, and Roberts the 52nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 7, Chapter 5 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to stalking.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 132 by Representative Boehner of the 56th, Dukes of the 154th, Scott of the 76th, Limon the 99th, and Roberts the 52nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 133 by Representative Boehner of the 56th, Duke of the 154th, Bazemore of the 63rd, Scott of the 76th, and Thomas of the 39th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 17 to Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Crime Victim Bill of Rights.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 134 by Representative Anderson of the 10th, Jones of the 47th, Jones of the 25th, Dubnik of the 29th, and Hawkins of the 27th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 14 and Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to open and public meetings.
Judiciary.
House Bill 135 by Representative Williams, the 145th, Mathis, the 144th, McDonald, the 26th, Powell, the 32nd, and Collins, the 68th. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 31, 10, 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to death certificates.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 136 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th, Scoggins of the 14th, Abstration of the 104th, Fleming of the 121st, and Taylor of the 173rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 and Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to primaries and elections generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 137 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th, Kelly the 16th, Gamble of the 15th, Smith of the 18th, and Lumsden of the 12th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 138 by Representative Boehner of the 56th, Mallow of the 163rd, Thomas of the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to landlord and tenant in general.
Judiciary.
House Bill 139 by Representative Boehner of the 56th, Dukes of the 154th, McLean of the 100th, Mallow of the 163rd, and Thomas of the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 6 of Chapter 6 of Title 32 and Part 3 of Article 6 of Chapter 8 of Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to regulation of maintenance and use of public roads.
Transportation.
House Bill 140 by Representative Bodie of the 62nd, Kendrick of the 93rd, Williams the 168th, Mallow of the 163rd, and Frazier 126th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 6 of Chapter 7 of Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to change of venue.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 141 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, Jones the 47th, Wiedauer the 119th, Reeves the 34th, and Werkheiser the 157th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 15 and Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to victim compensation.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 142 by Representative Carpenter the 4th, Watson of the 172nd, Rhodes of the 120th, and Earhart of the 36th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, and Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate computation and exemptions from state income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 143 by Representative Bodie, the 62nd, Moore of the 95th, Clark of the 108th, Evans of the 83rd, Couch of the 50th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 18 and Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding district attorneys.
Judiciary.
House Bill 144 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Smyrie 135th, Williams the 168th, Tarvin of the 2nd, Hitchens the 161st, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate computation and exemptions from state income tax.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 145 by Representative Bodie, the 62nd, Thomas the 65th, Hutchinson of the 107th, Clark of the 108th, Dreyer of the 59th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 17.4.20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the authorizations of arrests and use of deadly force.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 146 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, Cooper the 43rd, Jones the 47th, Wiedauer the 119th, Richard the 97th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 20 and Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding personnel administration.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 147 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Jaspers of the 11th, Williamson of the 115th, Washburn of the 141st, Martin of the 49th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions of professions and businesses.
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 148 by Representative Schofield of the 60th, Bernal of the 77th, Scott of the 76th, Douglas of the 78th, and Bazemore of the 63rd. The bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 36.62.5 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to developmental authorities.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 149 by Representative Williamson of the 115th, Carson of the 46th, Knight of the 130th, Blackman of the 146th, Petrie of the 166th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 150 by Representative Williamson of the 115th, Hatchett of the 150th, Kelly of the 16th, Frazier of the 126th, Parsons of the 44th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to public utilities and public transportation.
Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
House Bill 151 by Representative Bernal of the 77th, Neal of the 74th, Bazemore of the 63rd, and Scott of the 76th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to property tax exemptions.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 152 by Representative Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 170th, Crow of the 110th, Barton of the 5th, Anderson of the 10th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1A of Article 7 of Chapter 3 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to non-public post-secondary educational institutions.
Higher Education.
House Bill 153 by Representative Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th, Crow of the 110th, Barton of the 5th, Anderson of the 10th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 15 to Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Fair Business Practices Act of 1975.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 154 by Representative Reeves, the 34th, abstention of the 104th, Oliver the 82nd, Richard the 97th, Wiedauer the 119th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 19 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to domestic relations.
Juvenile Justice.
House Bill 155 by Representative Thomas of the 39th, Bodie of the 62nd, Cannon of the 58th, Scott of the 76th, Kendrick of the 93rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to education.
Education.
House Resolution by Representative Camp of the 131st, Campbell of the 15th, Donahue of the 30th, Mathiak the 73rd, Clark of the 147th, and others. A resolution requesting the United States Congress call a convention under Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States.
Rules.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 47 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, a bill relating to social services. House Bill 48 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Bruce of the 61st, and Scott of the 76th, a bill relating to state flags, seal, and other symbols. House Bill 49 by Representative Hutchinson of the 107th, Smyer of the 135th, Wilson of the 80th, Clark of the 108th, Schofield of the 60th, and others, a bill relating to insurance. House Bill 100 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, a bill relating to levy of excise tax rate, taxation of motor fuels not commonly sold or measured by gallon. House Bill 101 by Representative McLaurin of the 51st, Wynn of the 89th, Kennard of the 102nd, Schofield of the 60th, Mitchell of the 106th, and others, a bill relating to qualifications of electors. House Bill 102 by Representative Kendrick of the 93rd, a bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 103 by Representative Williams of the 145th, a bill relating to amended act to provide for the election of members of the Board of Education of Baldwin County. House Bill 104 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, a bill relating to specific business and occupation taxes. House Bill 105 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Bonner of the 72nd, Williams of the 168th, Tarvin of the 2nd, Hitchens of the 161st, and others, a bill relating to pay, pensions, and allowances of state military personnel. House Bill 106 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Bonner of the 72nd, Williams of the 168th, Harvin of the 2nd, Hitchens of the 161st, and others, a bill relating to definitions regarding the Georgia State Indemnification Fund. House Bill 107 by Representative Hughley of the 136th, Smyer of the 135th, Alexander of the 66th, Jackson of the 128th, and Williams of the 168th, a bill relating to meetings open to the public. House Bill 108 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Belton of the 112th, Lumsden of the 12th, Bonner of the 72nd, and Holcomb of the 81st, a bill relating to special license plates. House Bill 109 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Oliver of the 82nd, and Nolowitz of the 42nd, Cantrell of the 22nd, Mathis of the 144th, and others, a bill to provide greater protection for individuals who have suffered from childhood sexual abuse. House Bill 110 by Representative Clark of the 147th, Tarvin of the 2nd, Donahue of the 30th, Blanchton of the 75th, Gullett of the 19th, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding parks, historic areas, memorials, recreation, crimes and offenses, and game and fish. House Bill 111 by Representative Williamson of the 115th, Hatchett of the 150th, Houston of the 170th, a bill relating to financial institutions. House Bill 112 by Representative Kelly of the 16th, Cooper of the 43rd, Carpenter of the 4th, Newton of the 123rd, Hawkins of the 27th, and others, a bill to amend an act providing to torts to provide certain immunities from liability claims regarding COVID-19. House Bill 113 by Representative Alexander of the 66th, Hughley of the 136th, Park of the 101st, Dreyer of the 59th, Douglas of the 78th, and others, a bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 114 by Representative Reeves of the 34th, Rickey of the 169th, Oliver of the 82nd, Bonner of the 72nd, Buckner of the 137th, bill relating to imposition rate and computation and exemptions from state income taxes. House Bill 115 by Representative Walensky of the 79th, Nolowitz of the 42nd, Hawkins of the 27th, Cooper of the 43rd, Williams of the 145th, and others, a bill relating to insurance. House Bill 116 by Representative McLean of the 100th, Jones of the 53rd, Alexander of the 66th, Wynn of the 89th, Shannon of the 84th, and others, a bill relating to minimum wage law. House Bill 117 by Representative Walensky of the 79th, Gravely of the 67th, Rich of the 97th, Smyer of the 135th, Mitchell of the 88th, and others, a bill relating to low THC oil patient registry. House Bill 118 by Representative Burnell of the 77th, Beverly of the 143rd, Smyrie of the 135th, Schofield of the 60th, Scott of the 76th, a bill relating to organization of schools and systems under the Quality Basic Education Act. House Bill 119 by Representative Mathiak of the 73rd, Hawkins of the 27th, Rich of the 97th, and Earhart of the 36th, a bill relating to professional services in which a professional corporation may engage. House Bill 120 by Representative Carpenter of the 4th, Washburn of the 141st, Gamble of the 15th, Wynn of the 89th, Lopez of the 86th, and others, a bill relating to education. House Bill 121 by Representative Wynn of the 89th, Alexander of the 66th, Hughley of the 136th, Shannon of the 84th, Dreyer of the 59th, and others, a bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 122 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Hatchett of the 150th, Rhodes of the 120th, Watson of the 172nd, LaHood of the 175th, a bill relating to definitions, exemption, applicability, and examples. House Bill 123 by Representative Petrie of the 166th, Hitchens of the 161st, Stevens of the 164th, Gravely of the 67th, Williams of the 168th, and others, a bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 124 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Powell of the 32nd, McDonald of the 26th, a bill relating to funeral directors and establishments, embalmers, and crematories. House Bill 125 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Mathis of the 144th, Powell of the 32nd, Lumsden of the 12th, Hitchens of the 161st, a bill relating to general provisions regarding the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. House Bill 126 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Mathis of the 144th, Powell of the 32nd, Lumsden of the 12th, Hitchens of the 161st, a bill relating to general provisions regarding law enforcement officers and agencies. House Bill 127 by Representative Williams of the 145th, McDonald of the 26th, Powell of the 32nd, Lumpson of the 12th, Hitchens of the 161st. Bill relating to general provisions regarding telephone service, House Bill 128 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Jackson of the 128th, Mathis of the 144th, McDonald of the 26th, and Powell of the 32nd. Bill relating to general provisions regarding health, House Bill 129 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, Kelly of the 16th, Hatchett of the 150th, Gaines of the 117th, Quidauer of the 119th, and others. Bill relating to general provisions regarding sheriffs, House Resolution 28 by Representative McLaurin of the 51st, Gwynn of the 89th, Kennard of the 102nd, Schofield of the 60th, Mitchell of the 106th, and others. Resolution proposing amendment to the Constitution so as to remove a conviction of a felony involving moral turpitude as an exemption for the right to register and vote. House Resolution 29 by Representative Hughley of the 136th and Smyrie of the 135th. A resolution compensating Mr. J. Keith Bindray Robinson Sr. House Resolution 30 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Powell of the 32nd, Smyrie of the 135th, Williams of the 168th, Evans of the 57th, and others. A resolution proposing amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for the local authorization of a limited number of licensed destination resort facilities, casinos, resorts in the state. House Resolution 32 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. Cecil Matthews and dedicating a bridge in his memory. 3 second readers.
We are about to go on to morning orders. If you have signed up for a morning order, be up front here and be ready to go. Chair recognizes Chairman Watson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be really brief. I just need to make sure when I get home tomorrow that I get to stay in my house and not the dog house. So I need to wish my wife, Emily, a happy anniversary. It's been 15 years, and 9 of those I've spent here at the Capitol with you guys. But I need to tell her thank you for the sacrifices that you make and the support that you provide for our family. And I love you and the girls, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Burnow for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, November 2nd, my youngest stepdaughter, Valerie Bernot, passed away. Then on November 8th, my mother, Mary Hammonds, passed away. Our family had 2 funerals in 1 week. If that wasn't enough, on December 15th, we put our boxer, Coco, to sleep. Today is my brother Kevin's first birthday without either parent. I want to wish him a happy birthday and let you know that even with all of that, I trust God. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. I yield the well. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Kendrick for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. So today I rise to celebrate yet again the history that was made on January the 20th as the United States elected its first ever woman as Vice President of the United States. Kamala Devi Harris was born on October the 20th, 1964, and she is the 49th and current Vice President of the United States. As I stated, she is the United States' first woman Vice President and the highest ranking female elected official in U.S. history and the first African American and first Asian American Vice President. She was born in Oakland, California, and she graduated from Howard University, where she pledged my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and she went to the University of California, Hastings College of Law. Following the election of Joe Biden as U.S. President in the 2020 election, she assumed office as Vice President of the United States on January 20th, 2021. Her first act as Vice President was swearing in her replacement, Alex Padilla, and Georgia Senators Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. Her mother told her that she may be the first of many things, but to make sure that she is not the last. And so today we celebrate her making history. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Kausha for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. This morning I'm here to talk about someone who sits right next to me, because I think after we heard a lot about grievance, we also need to hear a little bit about hope. I'm here to recognize the representative from Georgia's House District 177, Valdosta, Mr. Dexter Sharper. Dexter is a frontline worker and has worked as a paramedic for over 20 years. A few months ago, he got infected with COVID-19, and it hit him hard. He was in the hospital for 11 days, and now he is a living reminder what risk our frontline workers take every day in fighting this disease. He had no pre-existing conditions, no comorbidities. It should not have hit him that hard, but still, it got close. He almost did not make it. Now he is one of the many COVID survivors who struggle with the long-term effects of this deadly disease, a long hauler. Regardless, every day he shows up here, serving the people of his district in Georgia. He comes in with his little portable oxygen machine. He has to check his oxygen level every day, regularly, and he hopes that he will gradually regain full lung capacity. But it will take time, and he's not sure. So if there's anybody who still questions why we have to wear our masks, or why we should get tested or keep social distance, talk to Dexter. He's a living proof of why we have responsibility to everyone around us and not just to ourselves. So let's give him a shout out, and if you have time, give him a round of applause. Thank you, Dexter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the House will come to order. We're going on to the rules calendar. We are going on to the rules calendar. Chair is going to ask that members please take their seats. If you already know everything you want to know and have a discussion that's really important, then take it out to an appropriate location. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 80.
House Bill 80 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, Jones of the 47th, Burns of the 159th, and England of the 116th. To be titled an act to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021, known as the General Appropriations Act. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Appropriations. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the chair resolves the House into a committee of the whole House for the purpose of considering House Bill 80, which is the Supplemental Appropriations Bill. The chair appoints the gentleman from the 159th District, Majority Leader Burns, as chairman to preside over the committee of the whole House.
Good morning, colleagues. This time we'll recognize the gentleman from the 116th, Representative England, to present a bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well and got a good night's sleep last night, so I don't put you to sleep too bad here this morning. You have in front of you two different documents, well, actually three different documents. You have your tracking sheet, you have the bill, and then you also have a packet of budget highlights that the House Budget and Research Office has put together for you to be able to easily reference some of the changes, plus some of the highlights that were already presented in the governor's budget as he brought it to us earlier this month. Always need to start off by thanking quite a few folks. To Martha and Christine and our House Budget and Research Office staff, who do an incredible job every year, but especially this year with the need for a little bit of increased speed. That has meant that their days have been longer and their weekends have been much shorter because they've been here working with us, working for us. While many of us have been able to be at home, be with our families, they've been sacrificing their time to be here doing the work that has to happen behind the scenes. So thank them. Thank you to our subcommittees and subcommittee chairs and our members as a whole. Thank you for the participation that you did in the joint hearings last week, the subcommittee hearings, the virtual format, and of course, once again, thank you to House Media Services and Betsy and her team for the incredible job that they did helping make all of those things happen. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention Ashley Newton in my office and the other admins that work with our subcommittee chairs. It gets hairy sometimes, and trying to get meeting notices sent out and figuring out how to get a Zoom link attached and a streaming link attached and all those sorts of things, and they have done an outstanding job at that as well. Our friends in the Senate Budget and Evaluation Office, I mentioned yesterday when I started, we have worked literally on this budget since last fall, and with them and along with the governor's staff and OPB. So that's why when we go through the document today, you're not going to see an awful lot of changes. And again, as I said yesterday, as OPB has to basically lock the budget down in December, as we continue down the stream, things continue to happen and you find out more and more information. And so the adjustments you see today will be those things, those bits of information that we have found out since they had to lock their version down before it came to us. And very quickly want to mention our former colleague Terry Rogers, this beautiful new purple tie that I'm wearing today. Terry and I started years ago. Both of our families have been impacted by Alzheimer's, and purple is Alzheimer's color. And as always, I try to wear a purple tie when I present a budget in honor of my mother that we lost 4 years ago. So the amended fiscal year FY21 budget of $26.5 billion is built on a modest 2.5% increase over last year. The 2.5% is $654 million, just slightly under the $722 million that we're running ahead on revenue collections right now. As I've also noted yesterday in committee and in numerous interviews, we still have some headwinds in front of us. As we get to the tax filing season, we will start seeing refunds made. Withholding was taken out, personal income tax withholding was taken out of unemployment benefits when they were paid. So we do realize that there will be some impact of those refunds when they go out. So we have to be mindful of that. Georgia, as always, as well, has the benefit of a multi-stream revenue flow. Income tax, sales tax, corporate income tax, motor fuels, all of our fees come from many different directions. So typically, if we see one of those streams impacted, one of the others kind of help sustain or make up for it. And that's what we've been seeing through this COVID recession and now coming out of the COVID recession. Income tax has remained incredibly strong. Sales tax has remained incredibly strong. But we did see a drop off in motor fuel tax fairly significantly. It is now back to about where it is, as about a 0.2% difference from where it would have normally been to where it is today. In the amended budget, there are some adjustments. The primary adjustments come in those areas which we would all argue are the places that we should be making adjustments and doing it in the amended budget. The mid-year adjustment for increased enrollment in K-12 and help for those systems that see declining enrollment of $147 million is present there. Again, adjusting for the stronger than anticipated revenues allows for a 60% restoration of the QBE reduction that we had to take as we were here in June in order to balance the budget. That's $567 million going back into QBE. The House also made some other adjustments in K-12 programs that are funded outside of the QBE formula, and in our version that accounts for another $8.5 million. We agreed to the adjustments for restoring $73.6 million in post-secondary formula earnings, and like K-12, added over $8 million for teaching activities within the B units of the University System of Georgia. When adjusting for other needs, we true up the mid-year, as we always do, and one of those issues is dealing with the non-deemed DSH hospitals, disproportionate share hospitals. So the total funding there this year is $35.7 million. Also an additional $25 million that goes directly to your communities to offset for the Forest Land Protection Act. And then another $3.5 million in the adjustment for actual revenues on the Outdoor Stewardship Act as well. As always, we did do some adjustments in contracts and services and start dates and those sorts of things that you see throughout the document. But the governor had also proposed making an investment in tourism and advertising tourism of our great state. Second largest industry in the state is tourism. And we all know, we're here in Atlanta today, we see the hotels and the very diminished revenue stream. We see the issues. We've had the World Congress Center with no conventions coming to town. So as once everyone starts feeling comfortable with the vaccine, and Lord willing, the virus disappears at some point, folks will free up and start traveling, but we want them to know or we want them to have Georgia on their mind when they do. And then again, amended budgets are a great place for some one-time things, and you'll see a few of those throughout the document. Piloting in One Georgia, as the governor's recommended, addition of $20 million there for the rollout of a broadband grant program. Purchasing school buses for $38.6 million, a house ad that you'll find in the education budget. Purchasing vehicles throughout a lot of different state agencies. We postponed vehicle purchases last year, which means those vehicles now have another year of age under their belt and another 20 or 30,000 miles on their wheels. Upgrading a data system for the Ethics Commission. Startup costs for the hemp program and the medical cannabis programs as well. Then allowing us to address some emergency needs as well. You'll find $15.4 million to address a shortfall for the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, or ADAP. $35 million being spent in behavioral health to help our developmentally disabled clients properly address their unique needs, many of those brought on by the COVID pandemic. And then funding for our nursing homes. You'll see that spread in a couple of different places in a few minutes as well. The very people that built this state, it is our obligation, morally, biblically, to take care of those individuals, and that's what we're proposing to do. And then an $18 million ad under public health to help update their data system. I think we all commonly refer to it as GRITS, but to update that registration system to help them on vaccine tracking and pandemic tracking. You know, and the other thing too, best of all, amended budgets can be fast. And with the amount of work that went in November, December, and the first part of this month, as I mentioned a while ago with the governor's folks and OPB and their Senate colleagues, it allows us to be able to do something we haven't done in a very long time. As a matter of fact, the earliest a budget ever passed out of the House was February 3rd of 1994. Now, that was the final passage. We're going to miss it just a little bit, but we're not going to miss it far. But again, that's because a lot of good people have spent a lot of time working together that makes this possible. Again, thank you to our subcommittee chairs and all of our members, but especially to our staff. If you will, take your tracking document. We'll run through it. It's not going to take us very long. You notice I've only got 2 bottles of water up here, and I got one in spare back here. Scotty's got it ready in case I need it. Section 1, Georgia Senate, no changes. Section 2, Georgia House of Representatives, due to the passage of SB 176 last year, it does require the employer to pay the employee ERS contribution for retirees, and that's what we're adjusting for there. Moving on to Section 3, the joint offices. You'll see it 3.1.2. Last year we had budgeted to help Georgia host the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. That meeting got postponed. those funds actually lapse back into the RSR, so we're just re-upping because they do plan on doing that this year. Under Legislative Counsel, you'll see another ad for the ERS adjustment there. Audits and Accounts, no changes. Once we get into the courts and prosecuting attorneys, I'm going to make a blanket statement here, so I'm not going to mention it each time you see it. But you'll see there at 5.1.1, there are some expenses for a temporary judge on the Court of Appeals because one of those judges has stepped back and suspended himself while there's some actions pending. And so we have to make them whole in order to make sure they've got a judge there to be able to function. But what I was mentioning a second ago, look at 5.1.2, and you'll see a 50% restoration on some of the salaries that we had basically told them to take furlough days within the court system last year because they're almost 100% personnel funds, very little operating funds, so that's the only place that they have any wiggle room. So we've added that back there, and you'll also see it under the business court. Moving on forward into judicial counsel, an upgrade for one of their computer tracking systems at 6.4.1, the restoration at 6.5.1 as well. Moving over to prosecuting attorneys. Under the DAs, we normally have to provide some legal representation or fund legal representation for DAs. We're just truing up that $446,000 amount to $50,000 because the use there is lower than was projected. And then again, the restoration. Again, in Superior Courts, you'll see the restoration in 2 or 3 places there. Supreme Courts, also the same thing, the restoration, and allowing them to keep some of their personal services funds, or utilize some of the existing personal funds that they have, personnel funds that they have. State Accounting Office, no changes. Department of Administrative Services, no changes. Department of Ag, Section 13. You'll see a few things there, and as I mentioned in my opening comments about the purchase of vehicles, we always, if possible, would rather purchase vehicles with cash instead of bonding them. That way that you're not paying the interest down the road. Sometimes it's necessary that we bond them, but a lot of times we're able to do it with cash funding. The governor had proposed $500,000 for vehicle replacement there, and in talking with the commissioner and the department, again, another year under their belt of not doing other replacements has made that number grow, so you'll see an adjustment there. You'll see the funds there at 13.22 to completely stand up the hemp program now that it's up and rolling. 13.31, some IT upgrades, one-time IT upgrades. 13.4.1, I know we've got our folks in Thomasville, Cordele, and Savannah that we told last year they need to figure out a way to take over their state-owned farmers markets. They've all come to the table with the commissioner and worked out an agreement and a way to keep those facilities open and part of their community. So we're basically saying that's fine. You're not going to have to take over those on July 1 as we had originally said. 13.5.1 under the Poultry Vet Lab, you'll see the one-time purchase of a piece of equipment there. Under the Soil and Water Conservation Commission, a delayed start date at 13.7.1. Banking and Finance, no changes. Section 15, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. Y'all, we all the time hear about tireless advocates for different causes, and I want to tell you that Chair Lady Dempsey is certainly a tireless advocate for our DD community in the state. And it wouldn't surprise me that she goes over limit on her cell phone every week or every month with the work that she does talking to that community, talking to Commissioner Fitzgerald and her incredible team there at DBHDD. And so in doing that, it always helps us focus on where we need to focus to help this community. And so you'll see several places throughout the document, not just here, but several places throughout the document, you'll see a caption speaking of the CARES funds and how some of the CARES funds are being spent or have been spent. You'll see it's a $0 item because we don't budget the federal funds. But we just tried to make some notations to give us all a little more information on where those funds are going. But it also gives a little bit of flexibility, and that happens at 15.2.3. And you'll see there utilizing about $1.7 million to stand up a new and innovative 10-bed center that will serve our individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Not sure exactly yet where that one will be placed. DBHDD knows exactly where it needs to go. Moving on to Adult Forensic Services, 15.3.1, a delayed start date on that project because of COVID. Then at 15.4.2, just a recognition again of some federal funds in that project. Moving over, Section 16, DCA. You'll also notice again the recognition of some of the federal funds there. And then when you get down to 1 Georgia, you'll see the program I mentioned a little bit ago, the $20 million that the governor has recommended to go to 1 Georgia to set up the broadband initiative grant program to help many of our local communities, especially rural communities that are out there where, again, right now kids are having to rely on broadband, but it's not necessarily there for them to be able to do their homework, their schoolwork. But also the pandemic has certainly made it evident to us all that not only is it a hindrance for teaching and learning, but without reliable broadband service, it is a hindrance to doing business and transacting business as well. So we're fully supportive of that. Section 17, Department of Community Health at 17.5.3. An addition there for some hiring initiatives and some retention initiatives and some contracting strategies there on the healthcare facility regulation division that go out and inspect our nursing homes. And at 17.7.9 and 17.7.10, Chairman Parrish and his team working to help our nursing homes. Many of our nursing homes have been impacted through the pandemic, not just because of COVID, but the secondary impact that we don't often think about is when hospitals quit doing elective surgeries, there are less people that are needing rehab services. And so just like we have to try and support our hospitals in many ways, we also have an obligation to help support these facilities as well. And so what we're doing there, you'll see about $20 million in state funds that additionally bring down about another $40 million in federal funds. You'll see a couple of adjustments just above that at 17.7.2 and 17.7.3, just truing up of the numbers there. No changes in community supervision. Department of Corrections, again, some recognition of some of the federal funds that they've received, but also Chairman Burchett, and I know he has visited with the governor, and we've had many conversations about the issue on staffing and retention at many of our juvenile detention centers and also our adult detention centers, and the turnover rate there. We attempted to address that last year in the original version of the FY21 budget, but then COVID hit. We had to pull all of that back to address some of those turnover rates. But what they've been able to do, because they're not fully staffed, they're able to take some of the funds, utilize some of their existing funds to then reroute to existing correctional officers for a 10% pay increase in corrections and juvenile justice to help stem the tide of turnover rates, burnout, and all of that sort of stuff. So you'll see that scattered throughout corrections and throughout juvenile justice as well. Moving on, Department of Defense, no changes there. Driver Services, you'll see a slight change, some new vehicles for those folks. They do use some medium-duty vehicles to pull testing trailers back and forth across the state. Originally, those had been put into license issuance. They'd asked that we move those to Department Administration. It just gives them more flexibility to be able to use them in different parts of the agency. Under decal, again, you'll see some recognition of some of the federal funds, but also just a slight savings based on a delayed start date that the person didn't start until the middle of November. Economic Development, again, recognition of some federal funds there. Department of Education, Section 24. I think the preacher said yesterday something about where your treasure lies, so does your heart. You can leave here today saying that that is the truth when we look at this budget. Between K-12 education spending, higher education, and a technical college education spending, we spend well over 50% of the state's budget on education. It is our priority. And to say otherwise is dishonest. And we'll talk a little bit more about that if we need to in a little bit, but I want to point out some of the adjustments that we have made. As I said a while ago, the governor proposed a little over $560 million going into the QBE formula. As you recall, last year when we left, we had to make a reduction in the QBE formula of about $950 million. The federal government gave a no strings attached, basically about $411 million during that period of time that went directly to the school systems. With the 560 add back, with the 411 that came from the federal government, the school systems, if you just said, okay, let's add and subtract, the school systems at this point are actually $20 million ahead of where they would have been. So think about that. Think about the restoration that you're going to be looking at in the FY22 as well, another $560, $570 million there, with another $1.7 billion that is on its way to education, Department of Education, and our school systems, no strings attached for them to be able to use. If you recall, last year I mentioned when we had to take the cuts that it's a three-way funding partnership, state, local, and federal, and that when one of the three partners stumbles a little bit, which was the position we were in last year, our revenues had stumbled a little bit, we always lean on the other two to help bring us through. And we have seen that happen, just as I said it would back then. Our federal partners have stepped up. Our local systems have tightened belts. Our local systems have used the dollars that they held in reserve for such an incident. They've come through while it's been tough. While it's been tough on the teachers, the administrators, the parents, the students, I think they've come through it remarkably well. And I think we're all standing up and doing what we need to do to help them as well. Under Ag Education, you'll see a restoration there. Full restoration under Ag Education and Career Technical Education for extended day, extended year, and also a 60% restoration to other programs contained therein. Pupil transportation at 24-14-1, you'll see where we're cash funding the school buses. I mentioned in my opening comments, 500 school buses, $38.6 million. Just to give you an idea, we run about 15,000, just under 15,000 school buses are on the road every day in Georgia. And many of you say, well, they haven't been running a whole lot because my system's been out. But what we haven't been seeing, because we're not seeing them necessarily at 6:30 in the morning, we may see them come through at 9 or 10 o'clock because they're out using those vehicles to take food out to these children. We're seeing that a lot. Many systems are up and operating, so they're running these buses. But we're a little behind on replacement. As a matter of fact, there are 5,913, or 40% of the current fleet, is past its expectant life. We've got good folks in the counties that are mechanics and the drivers take care of these vehicles, but at the same time, we have an obligation for safety upgrades that come with the new buses to take and do our part to help replace those fleets, and that's what we're proposing to do there. Under local 5-mil share at 24-16-2, you'll see an adjustment there. So as local 5-mil share, as QBE funding goes up, the state's portion going in goes up. Then the obligation or the buy-in from the locals, that percentage also goes up. So it creates a savings back to the state. So you'll see that there. A portion of that was used for the school buses. A portion of it was used for a few other things that you will see. Under QBE, under 24-17, you'll see several changes there. Those, again, are just formula true-ups. The recognition of the federal funds, the add back at career and technical education as well. ERS, no changes. Forestry Commission, Section 26, you'll see again where the vehicles were put in one program, but they had asked that they be flipped to another program. So that's what we've done there, made that adjustment for them. Under the Governor's Office, Section 27, You'll see some recognition of some of the federal funds throughout there. And then under the Governor's Office of Student Achievement at 2771, just an upgrade of the longitudinal data system and a licensing for it. And then under 2772, an add back of some funds for the Governor's Honors Program. I think there were about 75 students that didn't get to participate last year that they will get to participate this year. Under DHS, you'll see an adjustment first at 2841, just reflecting savings from some vacant positions. 2851, a savings from some delayed start dates. And again, you'll see the recognition of the federal funds. Just above that at 2852, you'll also see an ad for a contract there at the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children that several school systems participate in as well. Moving on, you'll see other instances of federal funds being recognized within the agency. Then over at 2821.1, you'll see an adjustment for a savings of a delayed start date there. And then at 2824.1, helping them with an IT issue to help speed up the eligibility determinations, and it should help speed that process up by about 5 days for our needy folks there. Section 29, Office of the Insurance Commissioner, no changes. Section 30, GBI, under Forensic Sciences, you'll see an ad there of $427,000. Director Reynolds and his staff have been like a hamster on a wheel trying to catch up to the top, but they never seem to be able to get there. The wheel keeps turning. We've got a crisis in our country. We have about 1,100 positions for medical examiners in the United States right now, and only about 500 of those are filled. Those individuals have the ability to basically name their price to go where they need to go. We as a state have an obligation to have those individuals working for us. And the director is continuing to lose individuals either through folks being hired away from them or retire and just not being able to find somebody to hire back. So we've implemented a system to work with them in the amended budget. We'll also address it again in the big budget that we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks to steady up that position so that he can maintain the lab here in Atlanta, the one in Pooler, and then get back to a full-time operating schedule for the lab in Macon, which has caused quite a bit of issues for our friends in South Georgia. We're also working with Augusta University and Mercer, their two medical schools as well, to see if there's a way that we can open up a pipeline. As they're doing training for medical students, is there a way that do they need a few more classes or something like that? Because right now we've got 600 positions that are jobs for these individuals to go right into. We just got to find a way to supply those. You look on through and you'll see under Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and a couple of entries there that relate to the federal funds, recognition of those. Section 31, Juvenile Justice, no changes. Department of Labor, again, recognition of some of the federal funds there. Department of Law, no changes. Department of Natural Resources, no changes there. Pardons and Paroles, no changes. State Properties Commission, Section 36, no changes. Section 37, Public Defenders, again, a part of the restoration of their personal services money there, just as we did in the rest of Judiciary. Department of Public Health. I know we have all seen, talked, and heard from our constituents as we've gone through the pandemic. We've stayed in very constant contact with Dr. Toomey. I know the speaker has, I have, many of us have. You know, what do we need to do to help you? And there are some structural issues that she needs help with, and that's what we're proposing to do here. We're continuing to work on this, and we're actually going to hand a couple projects off to our friends in the Senate. They're going to participate and look at some other projects as well for the Department of Public Health as we move this budget forward. But some of the things that we knew that we could go ahead and do that we all are in a lot of agreement on, and that is helping Dr. Toomey and her administration piece there by hiring a chief medical officer, a deputy commissioner, and then a chief data officer as well. And speaking of data, drop down to 38.5.1 under epidemiology. $18 million there to stand up the new GRIT system. That's a lot of money. I understand that. And when we were talking to them, I said, if we do this, it's not going to be something that 6 months from now we're still going to be talking about. Is it ready to roll? Is this something that we can do in a matter of a couple of weeks? And they have assured us that yes, there is an on-the-shelf product that they can use, that other states are already using, that they can put in place and stand up and get it going. Moving on, under infectious disease control at 38.9.2, you'll see an ad there for the ADAP program, $15.4 million. And again, this is the HIV/AIDS medication program for low-income individuals that have no other payer source. Should we let that lapse, we would be the only state in the country that would wind up with a waiting list, so it's very important. Moving on to public safety, section 39, 39.4.3, just a true up of numbers there due to the attrition of the current trooper class and the delay in not being able to have a trooper class last fall. Moving down 39.7.2 under Firefighters Standards and Training Council, a replacement of a couple of very high mileage vehicles there. And then a true up at 39.8.1 for the newly elective sheriff's class. Moving on to Public Service Commission, some minor adjustments there. One dealing with some legal fees that are coming, and then allowing them to retain some funds they have not currently obligated, but they know that they're going to have some expenses between now and July 1, just allowing them to retain those funds. Board of Regents, section 41. As I mentioned in my opening comments about the B units of the budget, you'll see some restorations there. These are the areas in which people are getting taught. These are the hands-on learning opportunities within the university system. Ag Experiment Station, Cooperative Extension Service, Forestry Experiment, all of those areas are B unit additions. We've gone back and restored 60% to them as well. If you'll look over at, you'll see several more of those throughout the document. Also knowing that we have a need at the medical college and the hospital down there, so we're doing a 60% restoration there to help them, because in many ways that is an experiment station. They probably wouldn't like to hear it phrased that way, but an experiment station is where you apply practical knowledge, and that's what they're doing there in that hospital setting. You'll notice down at 41.18.2, the recognition and increase in funds for formula earnings that we were not able to budget for here in June of $70 million. And then also the recognition of some federal funds that went directly to our HBCUs around the state as well. Moving on to the Department of Revenue, you'll see the ad there at 42.2.1 for the Forest Land Protection grants. Again, those go to our local communities. Our school systems benefit greatly by that investment as well. Under Secretary of State, dropped down to 43.7.1, dealing with the Medical Cannabis Commission as that goes online this week, as a matter of fact. They were still having some IT initiatives that they were needing to get completed, but we will see that become a revenue generator for the state here very quickly. Section 44, Student Finance, you'll see the engineering scholarship, a little higher demand there than what we've seen in previous years, so you've got an ad of $192,500. That covers an additional 55 students at $3,500 apiece there. Teacher retirement system, no changes. The technical college system, again, recognition of some of the federal funds that they have gotten, but also at 46.6.1, the governor proposed, and we have agreed to add $3.5 million for their increase in formula earnings, as well as a slight decrease in the square footage that they're using. That all nets out to about $3.5 million for them. Department of Transportation, our newly minted subcommittee chair, Clay Perkle. You know, the new guy's always got to show off a little bit, and so he felt like that he had to do something just to do something, but no, seriously. You'll see a few changes there. You'll see a reduction under capital maintenance, but you'll see the addition at construction admin and department admin. As they took testimony within their subcommittee, we found that we're having a little bit of issue in making sure that we're adequately managing federal transportation grants that are coming to the state. And they'd asked for a little bit of help there. Traditionally, what we've all done, what we've done for years, is we're always kind of hard on admin and cut admin and cut admin. Well, we're starting to see now that there are a few places we're going to need to add a little bit back. As the state continues to grow, there are more projects out there. We're going to have to continue to add some things back in different places. And then you'll see an increase over under CERTA at 4713.1 for an increase in their debt service for the Garvey bonds that they're holding for the 400-285 corridor project up there. Section 48, Veteran Services, no changes. Workers' Comp on Section 49, no changes, and no changes at this time in Section 50, which is the bond section. Mr. Chairman, that's a walkthrough of the tracking document, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that anyone may have if you're awake.
How many bottles of water did you drink? Wow. For you freshmen, that was only a half bottle. So we're finishing in record time, getting the budget to the floor. Keep drinking. And he normally consumes about 5 bottles of water by the time he gets the presentation done, and that's hours, I assure you. Mr. Chairman, I did have several questions, but honestly, the detail I know that you put in, the work that you put in, attention to detail on this budget is exemplary.
Thank you.
You, the staff, Christine, thank you for being here with us. Martha, thank you. But also, hats off to the subcommittee chairs. And I'm sure that our members recognize this is not a sprint that occurs annually. This is a year-long process that Chairman England and his team and the staff put into this budget. We certainly appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, you were looking out as I was into the members. Thank you to the members. The attention to this presentation that you brought to this today ensures that the chairman's work is appreciated, not just with a hand clap, but the attention to what he's told us today, and he's presented to us, and that's a testament to the appreciation they have for you and your staff and the work you've done. With that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions. As you said, you would be glad to take a couple of questions. We'll proceed with that.
Okay.
Our first question comes from room 341. The lady from District 55, Representative Metz, has a question. Representative Metz.
Is it me? Yeah. Yes, good morning. Marie Metz, District 55. I have a parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
My question, is it not true that the supplemental budget cut behavioral health by $91 million last year and did not replace any of that funding in this supplemental budget?
Thank you for your question. As we had to do with every agency throughout the budget, we did make reductions. Many of the reductions made within the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities were things that through the years they began doing that were a little bit outside of their core mission, outside of the Department of Justice settlement, outside of the things that are statutorily mandated that they do. Not saying that those were wrong to do. We'd agreed to do them, we'd agreed to fund them. So when we looked at that agency in particular, we spent a lot of time on that particular agency, as a matter of fact, in those last couple of days. We were very strategic in those reductions there to things like IT contracts and those things that did not directly impact end users. I would also add that even within that, they have also been the recipients of several millions of dollars of federal funds that they've been able to use in the place of state funds as well. And the offset of those federal funds, I don't know a number right off the top of my head, but I would almost guarantee you far exceed the reduction that we were forced to take at that particular time.
Will the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Georgia Virtual School. The amended budget does not include any restoration of the $423,658 cut from House Bill 793. Could you speak to that, please?
Again, a lot of flexibility sent in with the federal funds. Even before we adjourned in June of last year, there were $446 million sent to the state of Georgia specifically for education. $411 million of that went directly out to local school systems. Georgia DOE held some of that back to work with things such as the Georgia Virtual Schools, many other smaller entities that are not actual, what we consider one of the 180 school systems within the state. They were able to do things with those federal funds that again, because we have to pass a balanced budget. We have to make reductions from time to time. But again, they have those federal funds and had extreme flexibility with those federal funds to be able to help folks like the Georgia Virtual School. Our state FFA camps are another instance. Those are state-owned camps. They had to cancel all of their camping last year. DOE was able to use some of the federal funds to help fill in that gap for them. A lot of those pieces, a lot of those bits and pieces, because it is federal funds and the way our state constitution is structured, we do not budget the federal funds. The governor and the executive branch has the sole authority on how those are spent. They're able to fill in a lot of those gaps. We're charged with appropriating the state funds and the state dollars that we have, and that's all that we can do. And we're also mandated in that very same constitution that that budget is to be balanced. It's not to be a penny more than what the revenue is projected to be. So yes, it means that we have to take some tough cuts sometimes, but thankfully, and education in particular, as I mentioned a while ago, it's a three-way partnership most of the time. Federal, state, and local dollars going into it, so there's always a little bit of wiggle room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the questions. Gentlemen, yield for another question?
Yes, sir.
To the lady in the gallery here to your left from the 105th, Representative McLeod, for a question.
Thank you, Chairman England. I appreciate you and your staff and all the work you've done. And I do know it's a lot of work because we did take it on last year to find some alternative funds to the budget. So I do know it takes a lot of work, so thank you for that. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why is it okay to use federal COVID dollars, but we cannot expand Medicaid? And is it not true that COVID will probably be considered a comorbidity going forward?
Can you state the question again? I didn't quite follow you.
So we're using federal dollars for the COVID, and we're not expanding Medicaid. Is that correct?
Okay, I understand.
And with the seriousness of COVID, and knowing that it's probably going to be considered a comorbidity, why are we not expanding Medicaid?
Well, that is a policy decision that's not made within the budget. That's a policy decision that rests with this body and the body across the building in partnership with the executive branch as well. I think we've had numerous discussions over that over the years as that has been a topic. But also remember that with expansion of Medicaid, there is also an increased liability from the state's portion. There is a state match that goes along with any Medicaid spending. Currently, under the Medicaid program that we're under, it's a 70-30 match. Feds pay 70, we pay 30. Under the new different program, it's a 90-10 match, but still with that 90-10 match, you're somewhere between $250 million, depending on the estimate, $250 million to $400 million additional state funds a year that would be required to do that. But again, That's a policy decision. That's not a budget decision here in this document.
In that document. Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do we continue to fund private prisons and we have not totally put back the funds in for public education, which was $1 billion, you put back $636 million? Why do we continue to fund private prison? That's the school to prison pipeline, and we need to stop it in this state. So tell me, why is that a necessity with our tax dollars?
Private prisons are an implement that we use just like our state-owned prisons. Private prisons, as they are used, are on a contractual basis with the state, and they are a partner with the state in that job that has to be done of keeping people secured behind a fence, keeping the rest of our population, our families, our kids, everyone here safe. So if you decide you want to get out of that particular business, then be prepared to understand that you're going to have to stand up 3 to 4 more state-owned prisons, because that population has to shift to somewhere. It has to be housed somewhere. The flexibility that we have with the private prisons has kept us from having to build a new state facility now for 14 years, I believe it is, because of that flexibility there. And you also wind up, when you're using these facilities, because they're contractors, you're not also adding to the state's expense that of the legacy costs that come along with having a state employee, health care, retirement, other post-employment benefits. So it is advantageous to us as a management tool to use those facilities. I know your great passion on that particular subject, and I appreciate it. But again, that's one of those things that's a policy decision that is made that we then have to do in this document to take care of making sure that contractual obligation is met.
Can the gentleman further yield? I just want to make a statement. We have to think differently, because if we do fund pre-K and get our children reading and writing before grade 3, we can reduce the need for private prison or any prisons. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, I'll take one more question.
Okay, we'll recognize the gentleman from District 130, Chairman Knight, for a question, if you yield.
I do. Got mic issues. We'll get you a portable mic.
There you go. Thank you. This is a gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
To my friend, isn't it true, and I'm very, very proud and very grateful for the work that our House Budget Office, along with you as Chairman of Appropriations, and the Office of Planning and Budget from the Governor's Office, all the work that over the interim, that when this body left and the sub-chairs were talking, that we were monitoring all of the federal dollars that were coming in, that the rest of this body, in some cases, are not acknowledging or not recognizing. And that as we monitored those dollars, we were making sure that things like education, health care, all of those other items that we're talking about, we were seeing when those federal dollars were coming in, and that we know that those federal dollars, in cases just like education, went straight to the school systems, okay? Prime example. Furthermore, isn't it true that this budget reflects a lot of those dollars that came down from the from the feds, such that our budget is a good budget, again, that is funding our departments and our agencies as we as Georgia have always wanted to do at a full level. Is that not true?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you for the hard work and for your knowledge, the budget staff, OPB, because this is very, very detailed, and it's a lot to it, especially in this year of COVID and the federal dollars that came down. And I want to say thank you for the job that you have done and the detail and the hard work that has been going into this budget. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you to everybody. And Mr. Chairman, before I leave the well, kind of along the lines of Chairman Knight, I mentioned this a minute ago. We had to last year in June reduce QB by $950 million. The governor's add back's $560 million, $411 million in CARES dollars that went directly to the school systems, $971 million. I'm not real bright. I went to Caroline Elementary in Barry County. I can do a little bit of addition and subtraction, but that tells me that our school systems, just on those two transactions, are $21 million ahead of where they were had QB been fully funded. Moving into FY22, Governor has another restoration of about $570 million into the QB formula. School systems will be receiving very shortly about a $1.7 million addition from federal funds. I think that they wind up about $131 billion ahead in this coming fiscal year. So a lot of dollars have flowed into this state. A lot of those dollars we don't recognize in the budget because of just the structure of it. But you know, before I do sit down, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our folks with public health, our folks at the Department of Community Health, the Department of Developmental Disabilities, our National Guard troops, our state troopers, our DOT employees, Forestry Commission folks, DNR folks, our DFACS caseworkers, all of those individuals that have truly been those frontline folks that have been doing that little uncomfortable thing of sticking the swab up someone's nose to do a COVID test, that uncomfortable thing of sticking a needle in someone's arm. Nurses I've heard of, Chairman Watson had pointed out the other day, he talked to a public health nurse down in his neck of the woods, had gone 52 days without a day off because of their dedication. It's not because of what we pay them. It's because they care. It's because they care about you. It's because they care about me. It's because they care about Georgia. We're doing our best to pay them and recognize that. But also, please, when you see these individuals, thank them for what they're doing. It's not fun. I know the fear that I had from my family, from my dad that lives at home with us, that I would pick up something and bring it home to him. But I could kind of isolate myself. But these folks are not being able to isolate themselves from coming into direct contact with individuals that may be infected, but then have to go home and fix supper or fix breakfast or help the kids with homework. They don't have that option. So thank them. Their dedication to us, and I say us as the whole state, is incredible. Their servant's heart. You know, if there's anything good that comes out of this whole pandemic, it's the realization of how many people still have that kind of servant's heart. So thank you to them. Thank you for indulging me this morning. We put before you a budget that a lot of hard work has gone into. A lot of tough decisions were made in, none of them taken lightly. I commend it to you, would appreciate your affirmative vote, and Mr. Chairman, I yield the well.
The Chairman has yielded the well. We thank you for your presentation. We thank you for the questions. If there are questions that can be answered on this document and at some further time, I assure you that the Chairman and any of those on appropriations be more than willing to sit down with any one member of this chamber and answer any of those questions. At this time, the Chairman has yielded the well. We'll ask that recognize the Chairman for a motion.
There we go.
There you go.
Mr. Chair, I move that House Bill 80 do pass by committee substitute.
We have a motion made by Chairman England that House Bill 80 do pass by committee substitute. Is there a second? I recognize the gentleman from the 11th, Chairman Jaspers. Just a second, Chairman Jaspers.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Leader. A second.
I couldn't tell. You may have not been holding your mouth right under that mask. I'm sure to make it.
You
come
can't see that. Mr. Leader, I second Chairman England's motion.
Chairman Jaspers has seconded the motion. At this time, we'll call the question on House Bill 80. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it clearly, and this House Bill 80 passes by committee substitute. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from the 116th, Chairman England.
Mr. Chairman, as chairman of the Committee of the Whole House, you are instructed to report the action of the Committee of the Whole House to the House.
The chair recognizes Majority Leader Burns.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 80 and has instructed me, as its chairman, to report the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 80 do pass by committee substitute.
The report of the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House is received. The Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 80 and has reported the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 80 do pass by committee substitute. The Committee of the Whole House is hereby dissolved. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 80.
House Bill 80 by Representative Ralston, the 7th, Jones, the 47th, Burns, the 159th, and England, the 116th, to be entitled an act to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021, known as the General Appropriations Act. This bill having referred to the Committee on Appropriations, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 80? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 80 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Holly rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Sir, is it not true that while much of us appreciate the funds restored to public education, that still the $38 million price tag on 500 school buses could be better shored up to pay for the now comp waiver slots for developmental disabilities, since most of their parents are shouldering the burdens right now?
That will address itself to the judgment of each and every member of this body. What purpose does Representative Cannon rise? State your inquiry. Your mic is not working. Let's get her a mic. There we go. Start over.
Is it not true that in the conversation around funding private prisons and funding public institutions, the federal government has shown us that they are stopping funding private prisons without funding new public ones?
I'm not sure what the federal government is doing right now at this point, to be truthful. What purpose does Representative Hutchinson rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that we have $2.7 billion in our rainy day fund that is not being applied to this budget this year?
Well, I normally don't answer parliamentary inquiries, but it was a good thing we had a good amount in the rainy day fund last year, if you members will recall. All right, we're going to do one or two more, and then we're going to go ahead and lock in the vote. What purpose does Chairman Martin rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that the federal government that just made that decision is over $27 trillion in debt, and I trust this state to continue with a good budget, a good rainy day fund, and in the best interest of Georgians? Isn't that true, Mr. Speaker?
I'm sure the gentleman knows whereof he speaks. Final parliamentary inquiry. What purpose does Representative Thomas rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the supplemental budget keeps over $1.2 billion in cuts and does not contemplate even amending corporate tax credits that would help the most vulnerable in this state?
I'm sure the lady believes that to be true. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 80. The ayes are 149, the nays are 20. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. What purpose does Chairman England rise?
I make a motion, Mr. Speaker.
State your motion.
Move for immediate transmittal of the House substitute, or committee substitute, House Bill 80 to the Senate.
Chairman England has moved that House Bill 80 be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Is there any objection? Chair hears none, and the bill is on its way across the hall. The chair wishes to add its remarks and compliment the very, very fine work done by the leadership of the Appropriations Committee, all of the membership of that committee and the staff, and all members of the House who participated in their process. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Commending Dr. B. Harper as the 2020-2021 National FA President, supporting the protection of essential workers. Commending and congratulating John Jack Stanton Ressiter, honoring the life and memory of Otis Atwell Sweat, Jr., honoring the life and memory of Sheriff Randy Royal, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. All right, we have a few announcements, so give me your attention. We have a few announcements and a major special birthday recognition. Chair recognizes Representative Kendrick for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Women of the legislature and all your pretty white, if you can meet us immediately upon adjournment to take a picture on the South Wing Capitol steps, we would greatly appreciate it immediately, because I know there's a lot of other things going on. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Mathiak for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. State Planning and Community Affairs will meet at 1 o'clock today in 406. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Vice Chairman Gravely for an announcement.
Friends, every year from every district, firefighters come to this Capitol. I have the resolution for the annual Firefighter Day resolution. If you'd like to sign it, I'll be down here after session.
Chair recognizes Representative McLean for an announcement. He does not appear to be here. Chair recognizes Chairman Blackman for an announcement.
Mr. Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will meet today at 3 p.m. in room 606. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Williamson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the GOP freshmen, we'll be having a luncheon in 403 beginning immediately upon adjournment.
Chair recognizes Representative McLean for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Working Family Caucus is having their Zoom meeting. Pick up your box lunches in room 307, and we'll be talking about the state of unemployment and employment in Georgia.
Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell for an announcement. I thought you wanted to make it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you've been keeping up with the international news and Washington Post, the Chinese government has created a new COVID test, and for your consideration, you need to look this up on the Post and to decide that for members of this legislature who have a problem with the saliva test, they may wish to participate in the Chinese test. And the Speaker may be administering it.
Oh boy. I want you to help me wish a happy birthday. If this were your birthday, you'd want a thunderous ovation, wouldn't you? Well, you need to hear who it is. Help me wish a happy birthday to our Speaker Pro Tem, Jan Jones. Chair recognizes Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After that last announcement, I have a good motion now. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 9:30 a.m., January the 29th, 2021.
Majority Leader has moved that this House be adjourned until 9:30 a.m. on Friday, January 29. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and this House will be adjourned until 9:30 a.m. on Friday,